Hello, so today I will be teaching how to teach a biannual flight review topic of the hard landings to a private pilot applicant or above. So the first thing I want to talk about is learner level. In this case, they're a private pilot or commercial. They are seeking to refresh their license. It has a very varied source of people with information. For example, we have people who might fly once or twice a year. We have people who might fly full-time as a job. So it might just be various in terms of what aircraft they fly, their context, what starting information they have. So in this case, we'll try to be very open-minded to whatever aircraft they're flying, but generally 172 probably has a base idea, as I'm most familiar with it, and they likely are too, since they got their license in these things probably. The 172 wouldn't be a bad idea as an instructional tool. Another instructional tool would be the whiteboards, other resources I have, videos. I'll mention those as I'll go on, but I'll try to incorporate resources that they connect with based on their context. The second thing would be method of assessment, would be trying to assess their understanding of what to do, what to think, kind of the right mindset to have it going into this, because it's an irregular situation. It's not part of everyday flight training. They're going to have a hard landing, especially once you get past that private pilot stage. It's really not too common to have hard landings. So we want to refresh them what they do, what they want to think, what they should be thinking of. So for our last point, our primary method of this is going to be going from known to unknown and most used to least commonly used. Most items that they come in contact with to least used that they might see very rarely. And for the last one would be trying to gauge their understanding, again, just by questions, comments, and seeing where they're at mentally for this. So the next thing would be going to be, we'd be teaching about the actual content. Referring to their information and knowledge as an aviator and seeing if they've had hard landings, see to what extent. Some people have had prop strikes in their histories, other people have not, even had so much of a hard landing or a tail skid. So I'd really be trying to gauge their understanding on how they interpret hard landings. For example, when I first got assigned this, I was thinking, well, that sounds like tail strikes. But as I looked into it a little more, thought a bit more, I realized that it was more varied than just tail strikes. So from there, I'd be going into, hey, so what type of wrong landings do we have? You know, where we have porpoise, we have bounce landings, anything like that, to kind of see where they know with that. That helps us go into our causes, which will really help us define the rest of the lesson. So that we know like kind of the initiating causes and things that we can do and recognize in our landing approaches, because that's the goal. We're trying to mitigate hard landings, but also trying to address them afterwards. So that goes into just in a little bit. Next thing I'll be talking about is causes. So we talk about the actual airspeed. We'll be talking about altitude, floats, things like that might cause us to have those hard landings, and tie it into the actual porpoise and bounce. Kind of go a little reverse there, but that's okay. Then we'll be going into the actual systems part of this. This is my favorite. We basically talk about what parts of the aircraft could be impacted, and to what severity. Struts, nose wheels, main landing gears, main wheels, really anything that would be coming in contact with the ground. That would be the bulk of our lesson right there. Primarily dealing with like what it would look like, what to inspect, what to look at. And throughout this entire process, I'll be trying to highlight, it's kind of hard to see, but it says 91.7, which is the ultimate responsibility for the aircraft is the PIC. Because that's where I want to instill. They're usually going to be flying their own aircraft, they'll be flying someone else's aircraft. They're responsible for the aircraft and inspecting it on post hard landing, or even just know how to not hard land. And again, that's a very varied topic. So we'd want to be making sure that the student is going to be aware that things can go wrong, things can happen, and what to look for and how to recover. Because again, it's all about recovering from an issue rather than just accepting the issue as it is and continuing. If we're looking at an owner-operator, we'll be looking more especially on the things you need to fix side. So I'm not an operator, I don't have an actual aircraft, but I wouldn't be referring him to, hey, this guy might be a good person to talk about landing gear failures, or hey, this guy has a good deal on wheels every now and then, you should check him out. Kind of related back to the realism part of the scenario and making sure that the student knows that hard landing is in the end of the world, because as long as they can recover from it, everything's all good in the end. So from there, we're going to be going into certificate standards, kind of go into the legal aspect now, because now I talked about the actual physical aspect. I want to make sure that the students wear the legal requirements. Kind of go into a little bit of the NTSB reports as well, making sure that they know the aircraft needs to be operational, needs to be effective, needs to be compliance with all of its legal requirements, and in many cases have the mechanic check it out, make sure it's okay, and gets their sign off. We'll be kind of going off questions based on kind of scenarios mostly. If you have a hard landing, what prop, or if you have a porpoise, what part might break first? In which case, I'd be looking for nose wheel and prop. If you're doing soft wheel takeoffs a lot, even when you don't need to at hard airports, keep an eye on the tail. In fact, a lot of aircraft don't have these skid indicators, so I might recommend installing one. That way they're aware of it and they can inspect the tail if they have an issue, because even sometimes you might not know you have one, or you know that you did one. G meters aren't a bad idea. They're a little bit extra weight, but maybe it's helpful to them. I mentioned the 3.8 G for standard aircraft. Kind of go into the G forces that apply to the entire structure for hard landings. So, an aircraft can hold 3.8 Gs indefinitely. Hard landing is hundreds or dozens, if not hundreds of Gs at a time, but for only a very brief second. So I'd want to kind of bring in the little physics aspect of that, make sure they know that they are exceeding 3.8, but only momentarily, which is a difference than that 3.8 continually. And again, I want to make sure that they just know that happens to every landing and every impact, but they still want to check it out for any unusually hard landings or sustained loads. We'll go into the structure a little bit, especially the wing spars, really the frame. Make sure they're aware of the safety implications with that. Because again, this is all about safety. There's nothing really aeronautical with this. It's just the safety of the aircraft and the pilot as a conclusion. I really want to make sure the listener, the student, is aware of how this lesson is structured, because it's going to be the introduction, the actual physical concepts and components, causes and mitigations, and then legal, because they're responsible for the entire aircraft. When they have their keys in the pockets, and start up to shut down. So I'll make sure that they're aware of everything that goes into that. Especially just highlighting the regulation 91.7, because that's really going to be the centerpiece of this topic. And once they're confident, I can send them off for that topic. Again, this isn't really a flight review question. It's more of a keeping someone current with knowledge. Because again, if they're good on their aeronautical knowledge, I might talk about hard landings, make sure they're safe and able to handle that in the case they do. Because you don't want someone's first experience with hard landing, like certificates, mechanic inspections, and all that fun stuff, to be after they broke the main gear or something. So we want to make sure that they're prepared beforehand and informed adequately.